Is indeed our first movie now, and it's an exotic adventure from Australia, co-written and starring Paul Hogan, so familiar to us from those TV ads in which he says, "Come and say good day" for tourism. Well, as Mick Crocodile Dundee, he's an Australian safari guide and a local legend, too, who'd made a spectacular escape from a killer crocodile. After trekking through the outback with him to report the story, a beautiful American journalist convinces Dundee to return with her to New York. And in this scene, Dundee finds that Fifth Avenue can be as strange as the outback.
G'day.
Hello.
G'day.
Yes, sir. Well, that's one way to get around town. I have to try it. After spending a few days negotiating New York, which isn't easy, Michael, Dundee has found himself falling in love with a reporter. And in this scene, after they've been out on the town, they encounter one of the dangers of life in any big city.
Just kids having fun.
Oh, sure, Michael, right? Crocodile Dundee is really two movies, one exciting, the other obvious. Now, in the first half, in the beautiful Australian bush country, Dundee's almost a mythical character, sharing council fires with fierce aborigines, saving the reporter from a killer crocodile, and chasing off poachers. But when he flies to New York with her, the movie runs out of gas a bit. He attracts every stereotype in town, transvestites, prostitutes, and muggers, and he never does anything really interesting or unexpected. Still, Paul Hogan is such a refreshing and likable newcomer, and the early scenes in the bush country so captivating, I can overlook the rest of the movie's flaws and give Crocodile Dundee a mild recommendation.
Now, I can actually give it a hearty recommendation. I thought this was a very diverting escape movie. It was a likable fantasy, and Paul Hogan is terrific. He has a natural quality on screen. He's so comfortable in himself. He reminds me a little bit of Robert Redford.
You know, Mike, I agree, and this movie begs for a sequel. It was written by Paul Hogan and others, and in the character of Crocodile Dundee, he is obviously somebody who's read his own press clippings. He knows he has to do spectacular things to impress this reporter, and he does them when they're in Australia, at least.
That self-deprecating humor I liked a lot. There's almost a touch here of a Frank Capra film, like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Right. Here again, there's somebody from out in the sticks who comes to the city, which is corrupt and sleazy, and who manages to charm everybody just by the force of his personality.
It is a familiar setup, like movies like Starman or E.T., you know, Alien Goes to Another World, but there are a lot of other things going in this movie's behalf. For example, Linda Kozlovsky is another interesting newcomer, and we should say how popular this movie is. It's the biggest hit in Australia of all time.
It certainly is. And aside from that, Paul Hogan has been a #1 TV star in Australia for 10 years, and I'm sure he's bound for stardom in the United States. Our next